All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. Angelo here, co-founder, CMO of Adbank. I'm here with the founder, John Gillum, CEO of
Yes.
Adbank. And the purpose of this video is to talk about the new roadmap for 2018. We'll go into a little bit more depth about the various milestones that have been outlined there. And the second purpose is to discuss the acquisition that we just announced today. So this has been a huge week for Adbank, with beta, acquisition, and the new roadmap. This is really a great way to kind of hit the ground running at the beginning of this month. So, John, thanks so much for joining us. Let's get right into it. So I've got the roadmap up here on my phone. Some of the first dates are coming up pretty quick here in spring, and the first being IP revisions. So what's going on the intellectual property side for this season?
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, the roadmap, and maybe we'll just sort of start with the kind of the high level stuff. But like the roadmap was created with a lot more detail under the hood in terms of the sort of the minor milestones to hit. And this is really about sort of trying to show what those major milestones are while we're going to be sort of marching through this process of trying to, like, as quickly as possible, get it to the market, get collecting data, and then iterating on our process based on the sort of the success of kind of some of the key things that have happened. And so this is really based off of everything that flows through this milestone is based off of those big announcements that have just occurred, which is the acquisition, which is the beta platform being live and plenty of users now on it. And so on the IP side, big piece of what we're needing to do right now is start collecting data, and based on that sort of data collection for the AI, we're updating the IP filings and working with both the kind of the Fode, who's got a PhD in computer science with a specialty in machine learning, along with the firm that we're working with, and our legal team to kind of keep that process moving along.
Beautiful. And so the anti-fraud AI data collection, that's essentially having real payments flowing with true utility for the purpose of advertising, so that we can actually improve the effectiveness of that. Is that correct?
Exactly. Getting that first acquisition in the books has been key to kind of being able to get that process moving at a slow rate with the acquired network, and then at a faster rate with our own platform.
So when we jump into summer here, summer's going to be pretty busy. Starting with develop user profile API. What does that mean for people who don't know what that means?
Yeah, so that's all about our a piece of kind of, call it one of our like kind of fundamental like building blocks of our core strategy is we're not going to go out and be the best ad network. We're going to go out and say there's plenty of great ad tech out there, but what it all lacks is the transparency of payment between advertiser and publisher. And if we can introduce that, the payment rails essentially for digital advertising, that also comes with all the data that is needed, and that's really useful. And so we have basically the user profile, the user API, and the payment API. Payment API is completed ahead of schedule. The user profile API is really the minimum, kind of call it like beta's out, but we have the kind of the minimum viable platform to allow existing ad tech to convert to adopt us, and that's what the develop user profile API is all about.
Interesting. So that's kind of like the first bridge to external networks being able to use Adbank.
Exactly.
Beautiful. So summer is also when we're planning to launch our crypto ad network, which we announced. So that's pretty exciting, pretty self-explanatory, so we won't spend any time describing that. There will definitely be some more details coming out in the near future. Obviously, the timing of that is strategic in the sense that Google is going to be the last nail in the coffin for crypto advertising. And I just actually heard today MailChimp banned crypto advertising, which was interesting. Reading into it a little more, it's not surprising. Unfortunately, there's just too many scams in cryptocurrency. And when you're a a service like MailChimp, an email-based service, the deliverability is huge in that industry. So meaning, how often do emails sent via MailChimp end up in people's junk mail and spam? That's actually like really important. A lot of people don't realize how important that is in that space. It's not just you and the emails that you put out. It's actually also the email service provider. So kind of cool little tidbit there. Adserver integration. What does that mean, John?
So there's a lot of third-party ad servers out there that a lot of existing ad tech companies use. And so if what we are doing with both the acquisition and basically it's another adoption attack vector for driving the use. The number one thing we're obsessed with is driving the volume of Adbank tokens through ad tech, through true utility. And one of our sort of attack vectors is to work with existing ad serving technology. So there's a lot of sort of third-party ad servers that have APIs, and we just need to basically build the system to talk to those. And that's what we're also doing with our first acquired ad network to integrate it. And so working to build the tools to integrate with ad servers is what that summer's all about there.
And I think that's a good time to mention and reiterate how we're not trying to reinvent the wheel with what we're doing. There's a lot of good ad tech that exists out there. There's no sense in trying to shove it all onto the blockchain. Frankly, that's not the best way to go about doing a lot of ad tech solutions that exist out there. As amazing as and revolutionary as blockchain is, not everything belongs on the blockchain, especially right now. And so creating an ad server just doesn't make sense. There's so many different ad servers and ad server solutions that exist out there that are doing a great job. So it makes more sense for us to integrate with them, and that's actually better for adoption in terms of compatibility and also speed. Obviously, we have the anti-fraud AI development beginning in summer. We've obviously laid the groundwork for the anti-fraud AI with our patent and the preliminary stages, but really the hard coding and the beginning of the meaningful work, I should say, starts then. And that's really where Dr. Fode is, I think, going to sink his teeth into some really exciting work that is why he's here and why he joined our team. Is there anything that you want to say about that, John, or do you want to jump right into Adbank 1.0?
Yeah, I think jump right into Adbank 1.0, and a lot of what we've talked about here kind of continues to talk about sort of the speed that we're wanting to move at to sort of learn from the marketplace. We have beta live on the mainnet. Essentially a couple months after the completion of the ICO. That the speed that the team is moving at is pretty extreme, and we're very obsessed with delivering on the dates that we talk about. And what this is in order to kind of move at the speed that we wanted to move at, as well as sort of build for the long term, there were some sort of scalability decisions made with beta that need to get built out now that will allow us to have the scalability that we're after, to sort of achieve the goals that we want to achieve. And so that's what Adbank 1.0 really sort of aims to address, is very similar functionality to beta, but we're going to fix the bugs on beta. But Adbank 1.0 is going to be really sort of the have the infrastructure around it to be the platform that we build upon for the long term.
So let's jump into fall 2018, where the development of the SDKs for existing ad networks begins. You had mentioned, John, that step one was the developing user profile API. Would you say that this is step two?
Yeah, so it's almost like the develop the user profile API is kind of very analogous to the beta platform that we have released now, and then this is sort of the SDKs are sort of at the point of kind of a few parallel paths all coming together. So it's about having the Adserver integration done. It's about developing the user profile API, and it's about Adbank 1.0 launch. At that point, kind of all the predecessors for the developing the SDKs and really all that means is like the ability to start easily, and I should use air quotes on easily, but start easily integrating third-party ad networks to use the Adbank platform. That's what the kind of develop SDKs for existing ad networks really encompasses, and all those things that we just talked about kind of lead into being able to make that happen.
So, third-party integration release.
So that's sort of like release of it and then make it happen. So it's like technical capability and then the business piece of lining up the ad network to be integrated. That's the kind of the, like, this is like part one, tech, it's possible. Part two, business, making it happen.
Beautiful. And so the last thing is that we want to be by fall, or at least by the end of this year, to be prepared for those acquired networks to have converted to our tech.
Yeah, and I mean this date is it's, I mean, like everything in the space is, let's say, it's a moving target, but it's this process is starting now in terms of like there's a business piece to it, there's a tech piece to it. There's an overall execution coordination component to it. And basically from day one or before day one, we've been having conversations with the publishers and the advertisers on of our acquired network of that conversion to the Adbank platform and the use of the Adbank token. So that process is started. We just don't want to, like, we want to give that the respect that it deserves, because that is the game. If we can get people using the Adbank token for digital advertising, and we are moving at the pace we're moving at, collecting the data that we have, that's the game. So this is kind of, although it's sort of pushed out to Q4, this is priority one, and what we're already working very aggressively on.
So I want to switch gears over to the acquisition that we announced today. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we discussed in the official announcement post. Specifically, what is the point of our acquisition strategy? And John, you laid out kind of three major goals, right? Volume, learning, actually gaining experience that will help us know what we need to know to scale to the next level, and then getting those case studies. And I think that those are all very important. Obviously, driving the volume of ADB tokens by converting existing ad tech is key. But how have we actually gone about pursuing these potential acquisition targets? Do you want to talk a little bit about that, John?
Sure. So I mean, this is kind of the world that I come from in terms of the sort of operational side of buying and acquiring and operating various online businesses. And so kind of a few strategies were deployed. One, the relationships that I have with existing brokers in the industry, they were all aware of kind of the type of business that we were looking at, so they were trying to pull any listings ahead to put onto the open market that they had. Was working with some sourcing, some sort of deal flow sourcing specialists to also kind of generate as much deal flow as possible, and then also using our own in-house ad tech sort of experts, or a few networks that we talked to that, like, oh yeah, I've been contacted twice by people like you, so people about Adbank, and so we had a few fronts all pushing to try and find what that optimal kind of first acquisition would be, and we've got a handful still in the pipeline of live conversations, and we're continuing to work through those.
So why was this particular ad network acquisition of Ecig Media, why was this a good deal for Adbank?
Yeah. I mean, coming back to the three kind of goals: driving volume, learning, and case studies. The big thing for us is in this process, sort of, it's like great to buy a network, but then to convert it is the big kind of question mark. Is like acquired, we have the tech, now the conversion. That process is, like we talked about in the roadmap, is the really kind of challenging piece. And so we, quickly identified that there's a handful of verticals where they're closed off to traditional advertising options. And so with this network being kind of in a dominant position in its market, it has a little bit of a moat and a little bit of a position to help influence that push. And also working with the right kind of businesses in the right kind of vertical, in terms of businesses where they're, open to new technology, i.e., vaping is a relatively new technology, like in terms of the people that are running those businesses weren't running them 10 years ago. They're a little bit more entrepreneurial, and the size of those businesses isn't so big that to get adoption, we need to go through their legal team, their tech team, their board of directors, and then sign off. These are, in most cases, 1 to 3 man entrepreneurial management teams who can have a conversation and be implementing a change that afternoon. And it also came with great management, and the numbers were made it work in terms of a great sort of first acquisition that doesn't deplete all resources of the acquisition budget, and allows us to kind of execute. Hopefully it's a low-hanging fruit, easy execution, relatively easy execution, and then take those learnings and keep moving.
Nice. So this ad network in particular, it's the leading ad network in its vertical with over 5 years experience in the business. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
So, in a business, an industry that didn't even exist 10 years ago, that's a huge achievement. So, to be able to kind of saturate one particular market is would you agree that that's a really strong way to kind of speed up and ramp up the process of just converting an entire ecosystem, so that ripple effect is stronger rather than, a drop here, a drop there?
Yeah, achieving that critical mass. I mean, I think that any network effect stems from the same sort of seed of critical mass. And so us being able to achieve critical mass in a specific sort of vertical, that is in a dominant market position, that I think the hypothesis is that converting a handful of key advertisers, a handful of key publishers, a large chunk of the market will feel compelled to follow.
Awesome. And so we're looking at still a few other ad networks as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, we're still definitely aggressively pursuing additional ad networks. We definitely want to kind of take the learnings from this one and get those learnings implemented into the next acquisition in terms of as quickly as possible. The tech integration is another kind of key reason why this one made a lot of sense, in terms of it being a very simple, non-custom third-party API, third-party ad server that we can tie into their API to kind of use our platform. So most of the tech to make this conversion is pretty much already there. And so that was a big piece. And so we're certainly learning the simpler the tech, the better. For what we need to do, because we've got the complicated pieces, and so what we're grabbing onto, the simpler it can be, the better. And so yeah, we're definitely continuing to work through the process. Plenty of conversations still ongoing. A few are highly interested. We're highly interested in them, but some of the checkpoints that we just talked about don't line up with what we want to be doing right now. And so once we can have a case study of, hey, here's why these advertisers and publishers are better off, then we can move on to another vertical where the adoption will be a little bit more challenging.
Awesome. Okay, well, that, I think, sums up everything that we're going to cover today on the roadmap and the acquisition. So thank you so much to everybody for joining us. Apologies if you were on the live stream that happened before we recorded this, where we couldn't get John's audio to run through. So looking forward to chatting with you guys on our next update. And again, thanks so much for joining us, John.
Great, thank you. Glad we can make this all happen. And yeah, thank you to the audience, everyone. I really appreciate the community's ongoing support, and yeah, it's a fun ride, and we're excited to keep delivering on everything we've said as we have been doing so far.
Awesome. Well, thanks again.